Let us begin our journey not with a roar, but with a silence so profound and so ancient that it cradles the very seeds of our world. We are about to travel back, not through the corridors of recorded history, but through the vast, echoing chambers of deep time, a span so immense that it defies our everyday understanding. We will venture into epochs where the countenance were strangers in their current, positions where the very air tasted different, and where life, in its magnificent and terrifying forms, played out a drama of survival on a scale we can scarcely imagine. This is a story of giants that walked the earth, of predators that ruled the shadows, and of the small, clever ancestors of humanity who learned to navigate a world filled with teeth and claws. To comprehend this lost world, we must first stretch our minds to grasp the concept of geological time. Human history, with its pyramids and empires, its revolutions and discoveries, is but a single, fleeting breath in the long, deep night of the planet's existence. If we were to imagine the entire history of Earth as a single 24-hour day, the first life, simple single-celled organisms, would appear in the early morning hours. The great age of dinosaurs would begin in the late afternoon and vanish with the fall of darkness just before the end of the day. And the entire span of human existence, from our earliest hominid ancestors to the present moment, would occupy only the last few seconds before midnight. It is within these final seconds that our particular story finds its footing. A story of a fragile species finding its way in a world still echoing with the footsteps of giants. Long before the rise of cities, before the invention of the wheel or the written word, our ancestors were not the masters of the globe, but one of many species struggling to endure. They lived in a world that was, in many ways, still the world of the Pleistocene, often called the Ice Age. This was a time of dramatic climatic shifts, where colossal ice sheets advanced and retreated across the northern hemispheres, shaping the landscapes and the creatures that lived upon them. The world was a patchwork of vast grasslands, sweeping steppes, dense forests, and harsh, cold deserts. It was a world of extremes, and it bred life of extreme proportions. This was the epoch of the megafauna, a term meaning simply large animals. But these were not merely large, they were the giants of the ancient world, creatures that would dwarf their modern relatives. Imagine a landscape where mammoths, covered in shaggy coats of thick hair, moved in great herds, their tusks curving like colossal tree branches, their footsteps shaking the very ground. Picture the woolly rhinoceros, a massive beast with a great horn on its snout, a tank of muscle and fury built for a cold climate. Envision the giant ground sloth, not the slow-moving tree-dweller of today, but a creature as large as an elephant, capable of rearing up on its powerful hind legs to strip leaves from the high branches of trees. These were the gentle giants of their time, the great herbivores that formed the living, breathing infrastructure of their ecosystems. But where there are great herds of prey, there are always predators, honed by evolution to be the perfect hunters. The world our human ancestors walked was also home to fearsome carnivores that would make the modern lion or tiger seem almost modest in comparison. There was the saber-toothed cat, with its iconic, terrifyingly long canine teeth, designed to deliver a precise, killing bite to the throat of its massive prey. There were giant hyenas, larger and more powerful than any alive today, capable of cracking the heaviest bones to get at the nourishing marrow within. And in many parts of the world, there were enormous running bears and massive wolves that hunted in packs. This was the cast of characters that shared the stage with early humanity. It was a world of constant challenge, where the line between life and death was as sharp as a shard of flint. So how did our ancestors, who possessed neither the speed of the deer nor the strength of the bear, not only survive, but ultimately thrive in such a dangerous world? The answer lies not in physical power, but in the development of a different kind of weapon, one that was housed within the human skull. It was the weapon of intelligence, of cooperation, and of communication. While other creatures relied on instinct and physical superiority, early humans began to rely on something new and powerful: the ability to think ahead, to plan, to learn from experience, and to share that knowledge with one another. They began to shape their environment, however slightly, to their will. They learned to read the signs of the land, to predict the movements of the herds, and to understand the behaviors of the predators that stalked them. They turned the simple act of survival into a complex and collective endeavor. As we close our eyes and let our minds drift back through these countless millennia, we can begin to sense the immense scope of the story we are about to unravel. It is a story written not on parchment, but in the fossilized bones buried in the earth, in the stone tools left behind in ancient campsites, and in the faint genetic memories we all carry within us. It is a tale of a world lost to time, a world of ice and giants, of long-vanished landscapes and creatures of mythic proportion. And at the heart of this tale is the enduring thread of our own lineage, a small, clever primate that looked out at a world filled with monsters and dared to find a place within it. So let us now journey deeper into this ancient world, to a time when the dawn light fell upon a very different Earth, and to the specific landscapes where the first chapters of the human story were written in survival and fire. As we venture further back, the world solidifies around us, not as a vague concept, but as a tangible, breathing reality. The epoch known as the Pleistocene, spanning from about 2.6 million years ago to just 11,700 years ago, was our ancestor stage. This was not a time of uniform cold, but a dynamic age of dramatic climatic roller coasters. For vast stretches of time, global temperatures plummeted, locking away immense volumes of the planet's water in continental ice sheets that were miles thick. These glaciers crept southward from the poles, covering much of North America, Europe, and Asia in an unforgiving, blinding white blanket. The very air grew colder and drier, and sea levels fell, exposing land bridges that connected continents, creating highways for the migration of animals and early humans. The Bering Land Bridge, for instance, emerged from the shallow seas, linking Siberia to Alaska and opening a door to a new world. But the ice was not permanent. The Pleistocene was characterized by cycles, long glacial periods punctuated by shorter, warmer intervals known as interglacials. During these interglacials, the great ice sheets would retreat, the climate would become milder, and the world would bloom anew, only to be eventually reclaimed by the advancing cold once more. This constant state of flux meant that the environments our ancestors called home were always changing. A lush forest could, over millennia, give way to a dry grassland, and then to a frigid tundra. Survival required not just strength, but an immense capacity for adaptation. The creatures that thrived were those that could follow their preferred climates, learn new sources of food, and endure the relentless push and pull of the planet's changing moods. The landscapes of this time were majestic and varied. South of the ice sheets stretched vast expanses of cold, dry grassland known as the Mammoth Steppe. This was not a barren plain, but a rich ecosystem teeming with life, a sea of grasses and herbs that supported the great megafaunal herds. Elsewhere, there were dense, dark coniferous forests, patches of deciduous woodlands, and wide, powerful rivers that carved their way through the land, fed by the meltwaters of the distant ice. The wind was a constant sculptor, whipping across the open spaces, and the light of the sun, when it broke through the heavy clouds, had a sharp, crystalline quality, illuminating a world that was both brutal and beautiful. It was upon this stage that the giants made their entrance. The megafauna were the defining feature of these landscapes. In North America, the imperial mammoth and the massive Columbian mammoth roamed, while in Eurasia, the iconic woolly mammoth, with its long curved tusks and dense, woolly undercoat, was perfectly adapted to the cold. The giant ground sloth, Megalonyx, foraged in the woodlands, its massive claws used for stripping bark and digging for roots. The Glyptodon, a relative of the modern armadillo, looked like a walking fortress, a herbivore the size of a small car, covered in a thick, bony shell for protection. Herds of giant bison with horns spanning over 6 feet across grazed the plains, while the Elasmotherium, a gigantic rhinoceros, often called the Siberian unicorn due to its single, enormous horn, thundered across the steppes. And following these herds were the predators, the architects of fear. The saber-toothed cat Smilodon was not a swift runner, but a powerful ambush hunter. It would use its incredible upper body strength to wrestle its prey to the ground before delivering the killing blow with its legendary canines, which were not used for tearing flesh, but for precision stabbing into the vital arteries of the neck. The American lion, larger than its modern African counterpart, was a formidable hunter. The direwolf, with a heavier build and more powerful jaws than today's grey wolf, hunted in formidable packs, capable of bringing down animals many times their size. And the short-faced bear, with long, lean legs built for running, was a terrifying omnivore, both a scavenger and an active predator, standing taller than any bear alive today when on its hind legs. This was the cast of characters, the neighbors and the constant threats. in the world where the human story was being written in a fragile, yet persistent, script. It was into this world of challenge and opportunity that our ancestors, the early hominins, slowly, cautiously, stepped forward. Our story now narrows its focus from the grand, sweeping landscapes of the Pleistocene to a specific point within it, to a line of creatures walking tentatively across a savanna. These were our early ancestors, the hominins, and their journey was the most precarious of all. To understand how humans eventually came to face the great predators, we must first meet the beings who began this epic confrontation, not with weapons, but with vulnerability. The story of human survival did not begin with dominance, but with a desperate, ingenious struggle to avoid becoming a mere statistic in the food chain. The world of the early hominins, stretching back millions of years before the Pleistocene, was predominantly one of warm, wooded environments in Africa. Creatures like Australopithecus, such as the famous Lucy, were bipedal, walking upright on two legs. This was a monumental adaptation. It freed their hands for carrying food, for manipulating objects, and for gesturing, but it did not make them swift or powerful. They were small, perhaps 3.5 to 4 feet tall, with small brains compared to modern humans, and they lacked the formidable natural weapons of claws, tusks, or large canine teeth. They were, in essence, middle-sized primates on a landscape populated by a host of dedicated predators. Large eagles, big cats like the now extinct Donophilus, hyenas, and massive pythons all saw these small, ground-dwelling apes as potential prey. Their primary strategy was not confrontation, but evasion. Their survival depended on a hyper-awareness of their environment. Their senses were tuned to the slightest crack of a twig, the faintest rustle in the grass, the distant call of a bird that might signal the presence of a predator. They likely spent a significant amount of time in trees, using them for sleeping, for refuge, and for foraging. The cover of darkness was particularly dangerous, and the choice of a safe sleeping site, high in the branches or within a rocky crevice, was a matter of life and death. Social living became their greatest shield. Living in groups provided more eyes and ears to watch for danger. A solitary hominin was an easy target, but a group could create a network of vigilance, sounding alarm calls at the first sign of a threat, allowing the troop to scatter or seek safety collectively. Their diet reflected their place in the food web. They were not mighty hunters, but primarily foragers, gathering fruits, nuts, tubers, and leaves. They were also opportunistic scavengers. This is a crucial and often unglamorous part of our early history. After a large predator like a saber-toothed cat made a kill, there would often be leftover meat on the carcass. Accessing this rich source of protein, however, was incredibly dangerous. They had to wait at a distance, watching for the primary predator to leave, and then move in quickly, braving the threat of other scavengers like hyenas and vultures, all while using simple sharp stones to slice off pieces of flesh before making a hasty retreat. This scavenging lifestyle brought them into the direct periphery of the most dangerous animals on the landscape, a high-risk, high-reward strategy that would shape their future. The first tools were not weapons, but implements for processing food. The Oldowan tool industry, simple, sharp flakes and choppers made by striking one stone against another, allowed them to cut meat from bones and crack open marrow bones. Marrow, locked away inside the limbs of large animals, was a calorie-dense, nutritious resource that was often ignored by the initial predators. The ability to access it with a hammerstone was a small but significant step forward. These simple stone tools were a form of external teeth and claws, the first act of using intelligence to supplement physical weakness. They were a declaration, however faint, that this line of primates would not be bound by the limitations of its own body. It was from this humble beginning of fear, vigilance, social cooperation, and simple stone technology that the long, slow journey toward facing the giants would eventually begin. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the most compelling drama in the natural world was underway. The journey of our ancestors was not a steady, plodding march, but a series of breakthroughs. Moments where a new discovery fundamentally altered the balance of power between them and the world around them. One of the most profound of these breakthroughs was the mastery of fire. Imagine the first encounters with this terrifying force of nature, a raging wildfire sweeping across the savannah, driving all living things into a panicked flight. For the early hominins, it must have been a spectacle of pure terror. But at some point, a profound shift occurred. A curious and brave individual, or perhaps a group, did not just flee from the aftermath of a fire. They returned to it. They poked at the smoldering embers. They felt its warmth pushing back the chill of the night. They discovered that fire-cleared land made foraging easier, and they found the carcasses of animals cooked by the flames, the meat easier to chew and digest, and safer to eat. The controlled use of fire was a revolution. It was a technology that changed everything. At its most basic level, fire provided warmth, allowing our ancestors to spread into colder climates, to survive chilly nights and harsh seasons that would have been fatal before. It provided light, extending the day, pushing back the oppressive and dangerous darkness, allowing for social interaction, tool-making, and vigilance long after the sun had set. It became a focal point for the group, a hearth around which stories could be shared, knowledge passed down, and social bonds strengthened in the flickering light. But its most immediate impact on the relationship with predators was as a formidable defense. A ring of fire, or even a single large torch, was a powerful deterrent. Most animals, including the great cats and hyenas, possessed a deep, instinctual fear of fire. A campfire created a safe zone, a circle of protection that allowed for rest without the constant, gnawing fear of an ambush in the dark. For the first time, our ancestors had a tool that could actively keep the monsters at bay. Alongside the mastery of fire, the tools of stone and bone continued to evolve. The simple old Dowan choppers gave way to the more sophisticated Acheulean handaxes. These were not mere sharp flakes. They were symmetrical, teardrop-shaped tools, bifacially worked, requiring planning, skill, and a mental template in the mind of the toolmaker. This represented a cognitive leap. The toolmaker was not just creating something for an immediate need. They were envisioning a form within the stone and patiently chipping away everything that was not that form. This same capacity for forward planning began to translate into hunting strategies. Our ancestors, likely Homo erectus, began to move from being purely opportunistic scavengers to becoming more active, coordinated hunters. This did not mean confronting a mammoth or a saber-toothed cat directly. That would come much later. Instead, it meant using intelligence to target smaller game, or to exploit the weaknesses of larger prey. They began to understand animal behavior, to read tracks, to predict movements to what they may have used simple drives, taking advantage of natural features like cliffs or swamps to channel animals into traps. Cooperation was key. A single hunter with a spear was no match for a large animal, but a group of hunters communicating with gestures and early vocalizations could work together to separate a weak or young animal from its herd, to harass and confuse it, and to strike from multiple directions. The primary weapon was likely the wooden spear, its tip hardened in the very fire that now protected their camps. It was a simple tool, but in the hands of a coordinated group, it was effective. This shift from scavenging to persistent hunting marked a fundamental change in the hominin psyche. They were no longer just creatures reacting to the world. They were beginning to act upon it, to impose their will, however slightly, on the great herds that shared their world. They were learning the art of strategy, and in doing so, they were taking the first conscious steps from being potential prey to becoming a new kind of predator themselves. The balance of power, ever so slowly, was beginning to tilt. As the long millennia of the Pleistocene unfolded, the hominin line continued its slow, deliberate evolution. From the resourceful Homo erectus emerged new forms, such as Homo heidelbergensis, a likely common ancestor to both Neanderthals and modern humans. With these new forms came a new level of sophistication, a refinement of the strategies that had allowed their predecessors to survive. The relationship with the great predators of the world was shifting from one of pure defense and avoidance to one of active competition. Our ancestors were not just surviving alongside the giants, they were beginning to challenge them for their place at the top of the food chain. The key to this challenge lay not in brute strength, but in a unique combination of endurance, technology, and communication that no other creature possessed. One of the most formidable hunting methods to emerge was persistence hunting. This was a strategy that turned a human weakness, a lack of raw speed, into a devastating strength. Imagine a small band of early humans, perhaps Homo heidelbergensis, on a vast sun-baked savanna. They spot a herd of large antelope, or even a young, healthy mammoth. They do not sprint after it. Such a direct pursuit would be futile. Instead, they begin to trot. They move at a steady, relentless pace. Their bipedal gait and efficient cooling systems, namely sweating, allowing them to maintain a speed that would eventually overwhelm most quadrupedal animals. The prey animal, built for explosive bursts of speed, would be forced to gallop away, then stop to pant and cool down. But the hunters would not stop. They would always appear, trotting steadily over the horizon, their shadows long on the ground. Over hours, under the relentless sun, the prey animal would be driven into a state of hypothermia, its body overheating, its muscles cramping. Eventually, it would simply collapse from exhaustion and heat stroke, unable to take another step. The hunters, who had been tracking it, not by scent, but by sight and knowledge of the land, would then calmly approach and make the kill. This method required an incredible depth of knowledge of the terrain, of animal behavior, of the signs of exhaustion, an almost supernatural level of endurance. It was a testament to the human ability to win a battle through patience and strategy, rather than a direct, violent clash. Alongside this profound physical strategy, technology was also advancing. The simple, thrusting spear was a powerful tool, but it required close proximity to dangerous prey. The next great innovation was the development of the throwing spear. This was a revolutionary weapon. For the first time, it allowed a hunter to injure or kill from a distance, significantly reducing the immediate risk. The development of sophisticated spear points, made of stone and later bound tightly to a wooden shaft, created a weapon that could penetrate the thick hides of large animals. This was no longer a tool for merely scavenging or hunting small game. This was a weapon that could bring down a giant. The ability to throw a spear accurately also implied a complex understanding of physics, trajectory, and the prediction of a moving target's path. It engaged the brain in a new way, requiring split-second calculations and fine motor control. This increasing technological prowess and hunting sophistication inevitably brought our ancestors into direct competition with the established apex predators. A group of humans taking down a mammoth or a giant bison was not just a successful hunt. It was a direct challenge to the pride of saber-toothed cats or the pack of dire wolves that had laid claim to that same territory and those same herds. Carcasses became points of conflict. A kill made by humans would attract the attention of these powerful scavengers, and defending that hard-won prize required a new level of organization and courage. The campfire remained a vital deterrent, but now, armed with effective throwing spears and a deep-seated cooperative spirit, our ancestors were better equipped to stand their ground. They learned the behaviors of their competitors. They postured and shouted to intimidate them, and if necessary, they fought. They were no longer just clever prey. They were becoming a new kind of apex predator, one whose power was derived from a tightly knit community and a mind capable of creating weapons and crafting strategies that no other creature could match. The age of the giant mammals was now shared with a new and rising force, a force that would eventually reshape the world itself. As our narrative moves closer to the present, the human story branches, revealing that our own species, Homo sapiens, was not the only one to face the challenges of the ancient world. For hundreds of thousands of years, another kind of human, robust and powerfully built, thrived in the harsh environments of Ice Age Europe and Western Asia. They were the Neanderthals, and their existence provides a fascinating parallel and contrast to the journey of our direct ancestors. They were not primitive brutes. They were a highly successful human species, exquisitely adapted to a world of cold climates and formidable megafauna, and their approach to survival was both similar to and distinctly different from our own. The world of the Neanderthal was one of stark beauty and relentless challenge. They lived through the glacial maxima, when the ice sheets were at their greatest extent, and the European landscape was largely a cold, dry steppe tundra, a world of short summers and long, bitterly cold winters. To survive here required a level of physical resilience that is almost unimaginable. The Neanderthal body was a product of this environment. They were shorter and stockier than modern humans, with a broad barrel-shaped chest that helped to conserve heat. Their limbs were shorter and more powerful, their bones thick and heavy, built for strength and endurance. Their large, broad noses were likely an adaptation to humidify and warm the cold, dry air they breathed. They were, in essence, the ultimate physical specialists for a life of extreme cold and demanding physical exertion. Their relationship with the megafauna was direct and intimate. Unlike our ancestors, who were developing the throwing spear and persistence hunting on the open savannas of Africa, The Neanderthals were close-quarter hunters of the European forests and steppes. Their primary prey were the large, dangerous animals that shared their world: the woolly mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, the giant elk, and the wild cattle known as aurochs. To hunt such beasts required immense courage and power. The evidence suggests that Neanderthals favored a technique known as ambush hunting. They would get dangerously close to their prey, using the terrain for cover, and then thrust a heavy, stout spear directly into the animal's body. This was not a task for the faint of heart. It was a brutal, close-range confrontation where a single misstep could mean a goring by a rhino's horn or a trampling by a mammoth. The skeletons of Neanderthals often show patterns of injury similar to those found in rodeo riders, a testament to the violent physical nature of their lives. Their tool technology, known as the Mousterian industry, was sophisticated and effective, centered around the production of flakes from a carefully prepared stone core. These flakes were then shaped into a variety of scrapers, points, and hand axes. They were masters of their material, understanding the properties of stone like few others. There is also compelling evidence that they understood the use of tar as an adhesive. Binding stone points to wooden handles to create stronger, more reliable weapons. They lived in small mobile groups, likely family units, and there is strong archaeological evidence that they cared for their sick and injured, and that they practiced the deliberate burial of their dead, suggesting a rich inner world and complex social bonds. For a long time, the paths of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals were separate, each evolving and adapting in their own corners of the world. But as the climate shifted and populations moved, that separation was destined to end. When our own species, Homo sapiens, began to migrate out of Africa and into the Neanderthal heartlands of Europe and Asia, the two branches of humanity finally met. This encounter between two different kinds of human intelligence, two different adaptations to a world of giants, would set the stage for one of the most profound and mysterious transitions in the entire human story. For millennia, the Neanderthals had been the undisputed masters of Europe, a strong and resilient people, perfectly suited to their world. But a new kind of human was arriving, bringing with them a new set of skills, a new way of thinking, and a new kind of culture that would forever change the balance of the ancient world. The story of humanity took a dramatic turn with the gradual expansion of our own species, Homo sapiens, out of the African continent. This was not a single, organized expedition, but a slow, relentless seepage of small bands of people, moving generation by generation into new and unknown lands. They followed coastlines, traced the courses of rivers, and traversed grassy corridors opened up by shifting climates. With each step, they carried with them the accumulated knowledge of their ancestors, the mastery of fire, the skill of tool-making, the strategies of hunting and gathering, and, most importantly, a mind capable of unprecedented innovation and social complexity. This great migration brought them into continents teeming with megafauna that had never encountered a predator quite like them, and it also brought them into the established territories of their ancient cousins, the Neanderthals. The world these early modern humans entered was a mosaic of ecosystems and challenges. As they moved into the Middle East and beyond, they encountered environments ranging from lush forests to arid plains. But their most significant test came as they pushed north and east into the cold steppes of Central Asia and the mammoth-dominated landscapes of Europe. Here, they were outsiders, needing to quickly learn the rhythms of a new world. They had to identify which plants were edible, understand the migration patterns of unfamiliar herds, and learn to anticipate the behaviors of new predators like the cave lion and the cave hyena. Their ability to adapt was their greatest asset. Unlike the Neanderthals, who were physically specialized for a life of close-quarters combat in the cold, Homo sapiens possessed a more generalized anatomy. Their strength lay in their behavioral flexibility, their capacity to innovate new solutions to novel problems. This flexibility is brilliantly illustrated by the archaeological record they left behind. The toolkits of these early modern humans, often referred to as the Upper Paleolithic industries, show a remarkable leap in complexity and diversity compared to what came before. They were not just making stone tools. They were creating specialized toolkits for specific tasks. There were finely crafted bladelets that could be hafted to make composite tools, delicate bone needles for sewing fitted clothing, which was essential for survival in cold climates, and barbed harpoons made of antler for fishing. This proliferation of specialized technology speaks of a mind that could think in abstractions, breaking down a complex process like survival into discrete tasks, each requiring a uniquely designed implement. Perhaps the most stunning evidence of this new cognitive dawn is found not in tools of survival, but in objects of symbolism and art. As Homo sapiens moved through Europe, they began to create. They painted breathtakingly beautiful and lifelike images of the animals they lived alongside: bison, horses, mammoths, and lions deep within the sacred darkness of caves like Chauvet and Lascaux. They carved small, portable figurines from ivory and stone. They made personal adornments like beads and pendants from shell, bone, and ivory. This explosion of artistic and symbolic expression is unparalleled. It suggests the development of complex language, the ability to share stories, beliefs, and knowledge across generations. It points to a rich spiritual life, a desire to understand their place in the world, and to exert some form of control over the powerful forces of nature and the animals they hunted. This cultural toolkit, the ability to create art, use sophisticated language, and maintain far-reaching social networks, may have been just as important as their physical tools in their quest to thrive. It allowed for the preservation and transmission of knowledge on a scale never before seen, making each generation more effective than the last. As they stood on the threshold of Europe, facing a well-adapted and powerful human species and a continent of untamed giants, it was this burgeoning culture, this new way of thinking and being human, that would become their most powerful weapon. The meeting of Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis was a pivotal moment in prehistory, a slow-moving encounter between two different visions of humanity. For thousands of years, the Neanderthals had been the sole human masters of Europe, their physical prowess and intimate knowledge of the land allowing them to thrive in a challenging world. The arrival of Homo sapiens introduced a new and dynamic variable into this established order. This was not a sudden war of extermination, as it is sometimes portrayed, but a long, complex process of coexistence, competition, and eventual absorption that unfolded over millennia, shaped by the relentless pressures of a changing climate and the subtle advantages of two different survival strategies. The initial interactions between these two human species were likely cautious and sporadic. They were both intelligent, social, and capable of violence, but also curious. There would have been moments of trade, where exotic shells, pigments, or high-quality stone might have been exchanged between small bands. There would have been times of conflict, as competition for the same prime hunting grounds and sheltered valleys intensified, especially during harsh winters when resources were scarce. The archaeological record shows that Neanderthals occasionally borrowed technological ideas from the incoming Homo sapiens, refining their own tools in ways that suggest cultural contact. But despite these fleeting exchanges, the two groups remained largely distinct, separated by deep-seated cultural and biological differences. The fundamental contrast lay in their approaches to survival. The Neanderthals were the ultimate specialists, their bodies and their core hunting techniques perfectly honed for the specific conditions of Ice Age Europe. Their strength and close-quarter ambush tactics were devastatingly effective against the megafauna they had evolved alongside. Homo sapiens, in contrast, were the generalists. Their physical form was less specialized, but their culture was more fluid and innovative. They developed broader social networks, allowing for the exchange of ideas, resources, and even mates over much larger distances. This created a resilience that the more isolated Neanderthal bands may have lacked. In a stable, predictable world, the Neanderthal way of life was supremely effective. But the world of the late Pleistocene was anything but stable. The climate was undergoing violent swings, plunging into deep cold spells, and then warming again with surprising speed. These fluctuations would have put immense strain on the Neanderthal way of life. The large game they relied on became scarcer or shifted their ranges. The demanding, high-risk hunting strategy of the Neanderthals may have become less productive. In this unpredictable environment, the flexible, adaptable culture of Homo sapiens provided a critical advantage. Their ability to quickly innovate new tools, to exploit a wider variety of food sources, including fish and fowl, and to maintain wider social support networks, buffered them against the shocks of climatic change. They could adapt their strategies season to season, year to year, in ways that the more rigid Neanderthal culture perhaps could not. Over time, the population of Homo sapiens grew, while the Neanderthal population, fragmented and stressed by environmental pressures and competition, gradually dwindled. The final chapter of the Neanderthals was not a swift extinction, but a slow fading. Their distinct genetic and cultural lineage was absorbed into the larger, expanding population of modern humans. Genetic evidence confirms that interbreeding did occur. Today, most people of non-African descent carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA within them, a silent testament to this ancient encounter. The disappearance of the Neanderthals as a separate people marked the end of an era. It left Homo sapiens as the sole human species on the planet, standing at the precipice of a new age. The world of the giants remained, but now there was only one kind of human left to face them, a human whose innovative spirit and burgeoning culture were about to be tested in the final dramatic act of the Pleistocene. With the Neanderthals' lineage fading into the broader tapestry of humanity, Homo sapiens stood alone as the architects of their own destiny in a world still dominated by colossal creatures. This period, particularly as the last ice age began to wane, represents the pinnacle of the human hunt, a time when our ancestors, armed with sophisticated technology and deep cultural knowledge, engaged directly with the largest and most dangerous animals the planet had to offer. This was no longer just about survival. It was a demonstration of human ingenuity and courage on a grand scale, a testament to a species that had learned to not only live alongside giants, but to actively challenge their dominion. The technology of this era reached a level of refinement that was truly revolutionary. The spear thrower, or otlotol, was a key invention. This simple device, a shaft of wood or bone with a cup to hold the butt of a dart, acted as an extension of the human arm, leveraging the thrower's strength to propel a lighter, longer spear with vastly greater velocity and force than could be achieved by hand alone. The otlotol turned a hunter into a living ballista, capable of striking a mammoth or a giant bison from a safer distance with a projectile that could penetrate deep into muscle and vital organs. Alongside the otlot, hunters crafted increasingly specialized projectile points. The Solutrean points of Europe, for instance, were masterpieces of stone knapping, thin, laurel leaf-shaped blades that were both strong and razor-sharp. In North America, the distinctive fluted Clovis points were designed to be hafted securely onto spears. Their base thinned to facilitate this process, creating a weapon system that was both lethal and reliable. It was with these advanced tools that humans undertook the most audacious hunts, the pursuit of the mega-herbivores themselves. The image of a band of hunters confronting a woolly mammoth is an iconic one, and while it was certainly a rare and dangerous event, evidence from kill sites confirms that it happened. These were not reckless charges, but highly organized, communal efforts. The hunt would have required meticulous planning and deep understanding of mammoth behavior. Hunters might have used topography to their advantage, driving a herd toward a natural trap like a swampy bog or a box canyon where the animal's mobility would be compromised. Fire and noise may have been used to control the direction of the panicked herd. The final act required immense bravery. Hunters would have had to get close enough to hurl their otlot-riven spears, aiming for soft spots like the belly or the side behind the shoulder, seeking to sever arteries or puncture lungs. A single enraged mammoth could easily kill multiple hunters, making every movement a calculated risk. A successful hunt, however, provided a staggering bounty of meat, fat, hide, bone, and ivory that could sustain a community for weeks or even months. This rising proficiency in hunting coincided with another profound development: the domestication of the wolf. Sometime in this late Pleistocene period, a unique partnership began to form between humans and a particular lineage of grey wolves. The exact circumstances are lost to time, but it likely began with less aggressive wolves scavenging around human campsites. Tolerant or curious humans may have adopted wolf pups, and over generations, these animals became tamer, their traits selectively shaped by their proximity to people. These early dogs became invaluable allies. They could assist in tracking game, their superior sense of smell far surpassing human capabilities. They could help corner and harass prey during a hunt. They could guard camps from redditors and other human groups, providing an early warning system. And on cold Ice Age nights, they provided warmth. This partnership between human and wolf was a formidable new force on the prehistoric landscape, combining human intelligence with canine instinct and loyalty. The stage was now set for the final, dramatic transformation of the world. Humanity had reached a new height of power and influence, but this very success was about to contribute to a great and lasting change, a shift that would echo through the millennia and forever alter the face of the planet. The Age of Giants was drawing to a close. The world that had been the stage for the epic saga of human and megafauna for millions of years was approaching a profound and irreversible turning point. As the last great ice age relinquished its grip, the vast glaciers began their final retreat, melting away to reveal new landscapes, shorelines, and ecological opportunities. The earth warmed and climates shifted, transforming the mammoth steppes into forests, the Great Plains into different biomes. This period of dramatic environmental change, roughly between 15,000 and 10,000 years ago, also marks the time when a wave of extinctions swept across the globe, particularly affecting the largest of the land animals. The giants, the mammoths, the mastodons, the woolly rhinos, the giant ground sloths, the saber-toothed cats began to vanish from the continents, their reign coming to an end. The question of why this happened remains one of the great mysteries of prehistory, and the answer is as complex as the ecosystems they once dominated. Climate change was undoubtedly a primary driver of this transformation. The world the megafauna had evolved in was changing faster than many species could adapt. The great grasslands that sustained the mammoth herds shrank, replaced by forests that offered less nutritious forage for such massive grazers. The patterns of rainfall and temperature shifted, altering the distribution of plants and water sources. For highly specialized creatures like the woolly mammoth, which was built for cold and dependent on a specific type of vegetation, these changes created immense stress. Their habitats became fragmented, their populations isolated and vulnerable. The environment itself was becoming hostile to their very existence. However, climate change alone does not tell the whole story, for it was precisely at this time of ecological upheaval that a new and highly efficient predator was achieving a global presence. Homo sapiens, humans, had now spread to every continent except Antarctica, and they arrived in new worlds like North and South America and Australia, armed with their advanced hunting technologies and cooperative strategies. The overkill hypothesis proposes that these human arrivals were the decisive factor. The megafauna of these continents had evolved for millions of years without any contact with a sophisticated, tool-using primate hunter. They would have possessed no innate fear of humans, making them tragically vulnerable. As human populations grew, even a relatively low rate of hunting could have pushed these slow-reproducing giants, already stressed by climate change, over the brink into extinction. The loss of the great herbivores would have then caused a cascade, toppling the predators that relied on them, like the saber-toothed cat and the direwolf. The most likely scenario is that it was not one single cause, but a perfect storm of factors. Climate change weakened the megafaunal populations, shrinking their ranges and reducing their numbers. Then, the arrival or increased presence of humans placed an unsustainable pressure on these already vulnerable populations. The combination of a changing home and a new, relentless predator was too much to bear. The evidence from various continents shows a stark pattern. The disappearance of the megafauna often occurs suspiciously close in time to the arrival of modern humans. The world that emerged from this twilight was a quieter one, a world diminished in its grandeur and scale. The thunderous footsteps of the mammoth herds fell silent. The shadow of the saber-toothed cat no longer fell across the land. The age of giants had passed, leaving behind their bones in the earth and their images on the walls of caves, memories in stone of a lost world. With their passing, the relationship between humanity and the natural world was forever changed. We were no longer just another species struggling for survival. We had become, for better or worse, the dominant force shaping the planet's future. The great extinction of the megafauna did not simply erase the giants from the earth. It left a profound and lasting void, an ecological echo that reverberated through the millennia and shaped the world we know today. The disappearance of these keystone species, the great architects of their environments, triggered a fundamental restructuring of ecosystems across the globe. Forests, once kept in check by the constant grazing and trampling of mammoths and other mega-herbivores, expanded and thickened. The composition of plant life changed, as seeds that had once been dispersed in the dung of giant creatures now had no vehicle for their journey. The very landscape itself began to look different, becoming in many places more densely wooded, more still, and less open. The predators that had depended on the great herds, the saber-toothed cats and the dire wolves, found their primary food source vanishing, and they too faded into extinction. Their niches eventually filled by the smaller, more adaptable wolves, bears, and big cats that survive today. In this new post-Ice Age world, a world largely free of the terrestrial giants that had dominated for so long, humanity stood at a crossroads. The skills honed over hundreds of thousands of years, the cooperative hunting, the deep knowledge of animal behavior, the sophisticated tool-making remained, but their primary focus began to shift. With the largest game animals gone, human societies had to adapt once more. In some regions, people turned their attention to the smaller, swifter game that remained, to the rich resources of rivers and oceans, and to the intensive gathering of plants. This period of intensified foraging and broader resource use, known in many regions as the Mesolithic, was a time of refinement. Tools became smaller and more composite, like the tiny microliths set into wooden handles to create efficient sickles for harvesting wild grains or sharp edges for arrows. The bow and arrow, a technology that offered even greater range, accuracy, and safety than the otlatal, became widespread, a perfect tool for hunting the forest game that now populated the changed world. It was from this context of adaptation and intensification that the next great revolution in human history emerged: the domestication of plants and animals. The knowledge of the natural world, so critical for hunting giants, was now applied to controlling it. People who had once carefully observed the growth cycles of wild grasses began to sow their seeds deliberately. Animals that had once been prey, like the wild aurochs, the ancestor of cattle, and the wild boar, the ancestor of pigs, were gradually brought under human control. This was not an abrupt change, but a slow process that unfolded over generations. The first farmers were still hunters and gatherers. They simply began to manage their environment in new ways. The dog, already a long-standing companion, was joined by sheep, goats, and cattle. This shift from foraging to farming, the Neolithic Revolution, fundamentally altered the human story. It allowed for sedentary lifestyles, the growth of villages, and eventually, the rise of cities and civilizations. The relentless, nomadic pursuit of game was replaced by the cyclical rhythms of the agricultural year. The human focus turned inward, from the vast, wild external world to the controlled, cultivated spaces of field and pasture. The long struggle against the ancient predators was over, and a new struggle, to shape the land and build a society, had begun. The legacy of the giants lived on, not in flesh and blood, but in the very spirit of the species that had outlasted them, a spirit forged in the challenge of their world. The world of the giants may be gone, its most magnificent creatures reduced to fossils and legends, but its imprint is not merely a layer of sediment in the earth. It is etched into the very core of our human nature. The long struggle for survival in a world filled with predators and massive prey did not just teach us skills. It shaped our minds, our emotions, and the fundamental structures of our societies. The echoes of that ancient world resonate within us still, in our deepest fears, our greatest strengths, and the stories we tell around our modern versions of the campfire. The legacy of the Pleistocene is not just external, it is an inner landscape, a part of our psychological inheritance. Consider the primal human emotions, so essential for survival in a dangerous world. The sudden jolt of fear, the adrenaline that sharpens our senses and prepares our body to fight or flee, was a vital response to the shadow of a predator or the crack of a branch in the dark. This hypervigilance, this ability to detect potential threat in an instant, is a gift from our ancestors who needed it to see the dawn. The feeling of awe, that profound sense of wonder and humility we experience when gazing upon a majestic mountain range or a star-filled sky, is likely a descendant of the feeling our ancestors had when they looked upon a herd of mammoths moving across the steppe. Recognition of something vast, powerful, and greater than oneself. Even our fascination with the monstrous, our desire to be safely scared by stories of dragons and giant creatures, may be a cultural echo of a time when such monsters were real, and our fascination was a way of learning about and mentally preparing for the dangers we faced. The social bonds that define us were also forged in that crucible of challenge. The imperative to cooperate was a matter of life and death. Trust, communication, and a sense of shared purpose were not abstract virtues. They were the glue that held the hunting band together and ensured its success and safety. The ability to read the intentions of others in your group, to anticipate their actions, and to work together seamlessly was as important as any tool. This necessity bred in us a deep-seated need for community, for belonging to a group that watches our back. The campfire was more than a source of warmth and protection. It was the first social network, the place where language flourished, where knowledge was passed down, where myths were born, and where the social fabric was woven and reinforced through shared stories and experiences. The fundamental human need to tell stories, to narrate our experiences, likely began as a way to transmit critical information about hunting grounds, animal behavior, and, most importantly, the dangers that lurked beyond the firelight. And so, the great predators and the giants of the ancient world did not vanish without a trace. They live on in our myths and our dreams. The dragons of global folklore, with their immense size, power, and often reptilian features, bear a striking resemblance to the predators and giant reptiles of a deeper past, memories perhaps preserved in legend. The Cyclops of Greek myth, a giant with a single central eye, could easily be a folk memory born from the discovery of a mammoth skull, with its large, central nasal cavity mistaken for a single giant eye socket. The stories of heroes battling monstrous beasts are a cultural memory of our species' long and perilous journey, a way of processing and celebrating our ancestors' courage and resilience. We no longer face the saber-toothed cat at the waterhole, but we carry its ghost within us, a reminder of a time when every day was a test of wit, courage, and cooperation. That world of ice and giants is gone, but the human spirit that learned to stand up and face it, that learned to thrive in its shadow, is the same spirit that now looks to the stars, still driven by that ancient enduring flame of curiosity and the will to survive. As we draw our long journey through deep time to a close, we find ourselves standing in the present, but we are not separate from the past we have explored. The thread that connects us to the small bands of hominins on the African savanna, to the Neanderthal hunters in the frozen forests of Europe, and to the first Homo sapiens artists in the flickering torchlight of Chauvet Cave, remains unbroken. It is woven into the very fabric of our being. The challenges of that ancient world did not merely shape our bodies or our tools. They sculpted the cognitive and emotional landscape we inhabit today. The modern human mind is, in many ways, a product of that relentless, million-year-long struggle for survival in a world of giants. Our capacity for innovation, our relentless drive to solve problems and improve our circumstances, is a direct legacy of that time. Each new tool, from the first sharpened stone to the atlatl to the bow, was a solution to a pressing problem: how to access food, how to provide safety, how to gain an advantage. That iterative process of trial, error, and refinement is the same process that drives technological advancement today. The silicon chip in a modern device is a distant descendant of the carefully struck flint blade. Both are products of a mind that looks at a challenge and seeks to craft a solution. Our innate curiosity, the desire to understand how things work and why, was honed by the need to predict animal behavior, to understand weather patterns, and to navigate vast and unknown territories. The scientist in the laboratory and the early human tracking a herd across the steppe are connected by the same fundamental spark of inquiry. Our complex social structures, too, are a living inheritance. The need for cooperation bred in us a sophisticated social intelligence. We became experts at reading facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language because our lives depended on smooth, coordinated action and mutual trust. This is the foundation of our societies, from the smallest family unit to the largest global network. The laws we create, the social contracts we abide by, and the empathy we extend to others are all elaborate extensions of the basic rules that allowed a hunting band to function. The stories told around the ancient campfire to strengthen bonds and pass on knowledge have evolved into the novels we read, the films we watch, and the history books we study. They all serve the same core purpose: to make sense of our world and our place within it, and to bind us together with shared narratives. And what of the giants? They are gone from the physical world, but they have not disappeared. They live on as powerful symbols within us. The fear they inspired has transformed into a more general awe of the power and scale of the natural world. The challenge they presented has become the human drive to overcome immense obstacles to achieve the impossible. When we face a personal trial or a global crisis, we are drawing upon the same deep reserves of resilience, adaptability, and cooperative spirit that allowed our ancestors to survive in a world filled with literal monsters. The memory of that world, a world of vast, untamed wilderness and magnificent, terrible creatures, lives on in a deep, often unspoken, part of our psyche. It is a memory of a time when humanity was not the master of the globe, but a part of a much larger, wilder, and more awe-inspiring system. So, as you return from this journey through millions of years, carry with you this thought: the modern world, with all its complexity and noise, rests upon a foundation of ancient silence, of ice and stone, of grass and giant beasts. The courage it took to face the darkness beyond the fire is the same courage we summon to face the uncertainties of our own lives. The ingenuity that crafted a spear from a stone is the same ingenuity that seeks to solve the great challenges of our time. We are the children of that ancient world, and its legacy is not a burden, but a strength. It is the deep, resonant echo of a time when we learned to stand our ground, to work together, and to look out at a world of wonders and dangers with clear eyes and a steadfast heart. The story of life millions of years ago is ultimately a key part of the story of what it means to be human today. The story we have woven together, spanning millions of years and countless generations, does not truly end. It continues its slow, inexorable course, written now in a different script. The great epic of ice and giants has transitioned into a quieter, though no less profound, narrative, one of quiet evidence and patient discovery. The roar of the mammoth and the snarl of the saber-toothed cat have faded into a profound silence, but they have not been utterly lost. They have left behind a whisper, a subtle testament to their existence, waiting in the earth for us to learn how to listen. Our journey through deep time now brings us to the present, to the methods and the meaning of uncovering this lost world, and to the quiet understanding that comes from listening to the stories told by stone and bone. For the longest time, the ancient past was the realm of myth and legend. The giant bones weathering out of hillsides were the remains of dragons, of giants, of biblical behemoths. It was only with the birth of a new science, geology, and its companion paleontology, that we began to develop the vocabulary to translate these whispers. We learned that the earth itself has a history, written in layers of rock and sediment. The principle of superposition, that deeper layers are older, gave us a timeline. The painstaking work of excavation, of carefully brushing away millennia of dirt from a fossilized tooth or a flint tool, became our method of listening. Each fossil, each artifact, is a single word, a fragment of a sentence from a long-lost language. A mammoth tusk discovered in a Siberian riverbank speaks of a cold, grassy plain. A cluster of Clovis points found among the ribs of an extinct bison in North America tells a story of a successful hunt, a moment of triumph and survival frozen in stone. But the evidence is not only found in grand discoveries. Sometimes the most telling clues are the most subtle. The study of ancient pollen, preserved in lake beds and peat bogs, reveals the shifting plant life of the Pleistocene, painting a picture of advancing and retreating forests and grasslands. Isotope analysis of Neanderthal teeth can tell us what they ate, and even the climate they lived in as their teeth formed. The microscopic wear patterns on a stone tool reveal whether it was used for cutting meat, scraping hides, or whittling wood. We are, piece by piece, learning to read this intricate archive. The past is no longer a dark, unknown space. It is a vast, complex tapestry, and we are slowly, patiently, learning to distinguish its colors and patterns. And what do these whispers tell us? They tell a story of constant, unrelenting change. They tell of a world that was never static, but always in flux, with climates shifting, seas rising and falling, and species evolving, migrating, and going extinct. They tell us that humanity's place in this drama was, for the vast majority of our history, a precarious one. We were not the dominant protagonists, but a clever, adaptable species navigating a world of much larger and more powerful forces. This perspective is a profound humbler. It places our entire recorded history, all our empires and inventions, into the final, brief moment of a very long day. It reminds us that the world we have built our modern civilizations upon is a fleeting interglacial period, a warm pause in the grander climatic rhythms of our planet. To listen to the deep past is to understand our own profound connection to the natural world. The genetic code that shapes our bodies carries within it the echoes of that long struggle, the adrenaline response, the capacity for language and cooperation, the deep-seated fear of the dark and the things that might lurk within it. It is all a part of that inheritance. The giants are gone, but the world they inhabited in its fundamental laws of life and death. Competition and cooperation, challenge and adaptation is still our world. We are the products of that ancient crucible. By listening to the whisper in the bones, we do not just learn about mammoths and Neanderthals. We learn about ourselves. We learn that we are resilient, we are ingenious, and we are forever part of the great unending story of life on Earth. And with that understanding, we can look to the future, not as masters of a conquered world, but as a species with a deep and ancient past, carrying the lessons of the ice and the giants forward into the unknown chapters yet to be written. Our journey, which began in the deep silence of a world before memory, now finds its conclusion not in an ending, but in a reflection. We have traversed epochs, witnessed the rise and fall of giants, and followed the fragile, tenacious thread of our own lineage through a landscape of immense challenge. We have seen how the crackle of the first controlled fire pushed back the darkness and kept the predators at bay, creating a circle of safety and community. That fire, in a metaphorical sense, still burns. Its glow now illuminates not a cave wall, but the vast library of knowledge we have built about our own origins. The story of our ancient past is not a closed book to be placed on a shelf. It is a living light that, if we allow it, can guide our steps into the future. The lessons etched into our bones and our collective memory are more relevant now than ever before. The same adaptability that allowed us to spread from the savannas of Africa to the frozen tundra of Siberia is the same quality. We must summon to face the rapid environmental changes of our current century. Our ancestors were masters of reading their environment, of understanding the subtle signs of shifting seasons and animal migrations. They lived by a necessity of balance, for to overexploit a resource was to risk starvation, and to misunderstand a predator was to risk death. This deep, intuitive, ecological knowledge, born from a time when humanity was deeply embedded in the food web, is a wisdom we are in desperate need of rediscovering. In an age of climate change and mass extinction, the ancient imperative to live in balance with the world around us is no longer a matter of local survival, but of global necessity. Furthermore, the cooperation that was once essential for bringing down a mammoth or defending a kill from dire wolves is the same cooperation required to solve the complex, interconnected problems of the modern world. The hunting band, with its shared purpose and reliance on every member's skills, is a blueprint for our global community. The challenges we face, pandemics, resource scarcity, environmental crises, know no borders. They require the same spirit of collective action, the same setting aside of minor differences for a greater common good that allowed a band of early humans to thrive. The stories told around the campfire, which bound the group together and transmitted knowledge, had their modern equivalent in global communication, education, and shared scientific endeavor. Our ability to share information and unite across vast distances is our modern otlotl, a tool of immense power if we choose to wield it wisely. And what of the giants? Their absence is a permanent reminder of the fragility of life, even in its most powerful and majestic forms. Their extinction, whether driven by our ancestors' spears, a changing climate, or more likely both, stands as a solemn lesson in the power of humanity to alter the planet. We, who once looked up in fear and awe at these creatures, now hold a position of unprecedented influence over the fate of Earth's remaining megafauna and its ecosystems as a whole. The story of the ancient world confers upon us a profound responsibility. It asks us to be not just the inheritors of the planet, but its stewards, to use our ingenuity and our cooperative spirit to protect the wonder and diversity of life that remains. So, as you carry this story with you, let it be a source of both humility and strength. Remember the small, clever primate that dared to face the monsters, not with tooth and claw, but with mind and heart. Remember the resilience forged in ice ages, the innovation sparked by necessity, and the unbreakable bonds of community that were our greatest shield. The world of the giants is gone, but the human qualities that were honed within it, courage, adaptability, cooperation, and a deep-seated wonder for the natural world, are enduring inheritance. They are the fire we carry forward, a light from our deepest past, illuminating the path to our future. The long story continues, and we are its authors now. The narrative of life, millions of years ago, of human origins and the age of giants, is a story that has been meticulously pieced together from the fragments left behind. It is a record of what was, a grand and epic tale that has brought us to this present moment. But as our journey through deep time concludes, we arrive at a threshold, not of an ending, but of a beginning. The final chapter of this long story is not yet written. It is the chapter of now, the chapter we are all actively composing with our choices, our actions, and our understanding of the past that shaped us. The legacy of the ancient world is not a static artifact to be observed. It is a dynamic force, a responsibility that now rests squarely in our hands. We are the first generation to possess such a comprehensive and detailed understanding of our own deep history. We can trace the genetic lineages, reconstruct the ancient climates, and understand the ecological forces that led to the rise and fall of entire species. This knowledge is a power unlike any our ancestors possessed. With it comes the profound realization that we are not separate from the natural world, but the current culmination of its long, intricate processes. The same evolutionary pressures that shaped the saber-toothed cat's fangs and the mammoth's tusks also shaped the human brain capable of both unparalleled creation and unprecedented destruction. We now hold the capacity to consciously steer the future course of life on this planet, a role for which there is no precedent. The challenges we face are the modern equivalents of the ancient ones. The changing climate is our new ice age, a global shift requiring immense adaptability. The loss of biodiversity is our new extinction event, a silent human-driven counterpart to the megafaunal collapse. The need for resources in space echoes the ancient competition for hunting grounds and safe valleys. But our tools for addressing these challenges have evolved. Our campfire is now the global network of science and communication. Our stone tools are advanced technologies capable of harnessing clean energy and monitoring planetary health. Our hunting bands have become international alliances and global institutions. The question is no longer one of capability, but of will. Will we apply the lessons of cooperation, innovation, and balance that are the very essence of our survival story? The giants of the ancient world are gone, but their lesson endures, that even the most powerful and magnificent creatures are vulnerable to a changing world. Their memory can serve as a compass, guiding us toward a future where we use our hard-won dominance not for exploitation, but for guardianship. We have the opportunity to write a new chapter, one in which the human genius for survival is directed toward ensuring the survival of the whole, vibrant tapestry of life. We can choose to be the generation that listened to the whispers of the past and heeded its warnings, that embraced the cooperative spirit of the hunting band on a global scale, and that used its fire not just to illuminate the darkness, but to warm the entire world. The long story of life on Earth continues. The millions of years we have explored together have led to this moment, to us. We are the keepers of the flame, the storytellers, the architects of the next age. Let us carry the courage of our ancestors, the wisdom of the deep past, and the hope for a future where the human chapter is remembered, not for its consumption, but for its compassion, not for its dominion, but for its stewardship. The unwritten chapter awaits its authors. Let us begin. As we stand at the end of our narrative, having journeyed from the first sparks of intelligence in a dangerous world to the dawn of our modern age of awareness, a final, quiet truth emerges. Our story, for all its drama and uniqueness, is not an isolated tale. It is a single recent thread in the immense and ancient fabric of life on Earth. The rise and fall of species, the shifting of continents, the relentless march of evolution, these are the constants of our planet's biography. Humanity's journey, from a vulnerable primate to a global force, is a breathtaking chapter, but it is a chapter within a much longer and grander book. To understand our place is to see ourselves as part of this eternal cycle, a species that emerged from the natural world, and to which, in the most fundamental sense, we still belong. Consider the rhythm of the ancient world we have explored. For hundreds of millions of years, life has been a story of dynasties. The great reptiles had their age, ruling the land, sea, and air for an epoch that makes the entire history of mammals seem brief. Then came the rise of the mammals, small and furtive at first, who diversified into the magnificent and terrifying megafauna of the Pleistocene. Our own lineage, the hominins, is a very recent branch on this vast and sprawling tree of life. Every species that has ever lived, from the smallest microbe to the largest dinosaur, has played its part, has filled its niche, and has contributed to the complex, interwoven web of existence. The extinction of the giants was not an anomaly. It was part of this deep, often brutal, rhythm. Species come and go, ecosystems transform, This is the way of the world, a process of constant, dynamic change over depths of time that humble the human imagination. In this context, the human impulse to create, to build, and to leave our mark is not a departure from nature, but an expression of it. The beaver builds its dam, the bird its nest, the termite its towering mound. We have simply taken this innate drive to a new level of complexity. Our cities are our nests, our global networks, our webs, our art and science, our unique form of song and display. The same creative force that painted bison on cave walls now paints digital worlds on screens. The same cooperative instinct that organized a mammoth hunt now organizes global scientific collaborations. We have not escaped nature. We are expressing one of its most recent and potent possibilities. Our consciousness, our self-awareness, is the latest tool to have emerged from evolution's workshop, a tool of immense power whose ultimate purpose and impact are still being revealed. Therefore, the responsibility we carry is not one of managers over a separate, external system. It is the responsibility of a conscious part of the whole, a part that has suddenly gained the ability to understand the system and, consequently, to affect it profoundly. We are the first species that can look back and comprehend the epic story of life, that can feel a sense of loss for the creatures of the past, and that can feel a sense of urgency for the creatures of the present. This awareness is our greatest gift and our heaviest burden. It calls us to act not as conquerors, but as participants who have awakened to the consequences of their actions. It asks us to use our power with wisdom, to ensure that the great story of life continues with all its diversity and wonder for chapters beyond our own. So, as the embers of our campfire narrative glow softly, let this be the final thought. You are part of an unbroken chain that stretches back to the first life in a primeval sea. You carry within you the courage of the hunter, the curiosity of the explorer, the wisdom of the storyteller, and the resilience of the Ice Age survivor. You are a living testament to a world of giants, a world of challenges met and overcome, and you are now a custodian of the story itself. Carry this knowledge not as a weight, but as a connection, for you are not just in the universe, in all its ancient star-forged glory, is also in you. The story of life millions of years ago is your story. Listen to its echoes, honor its lessons, and help write the next lines with care, with compassion, and with the humble understanding that we are all forever a part of the great, unfolding story of Earth. The long night of our journey is over. We have traveled together through the immense corridors of time, from a world of silent, primal beginnings to the vibrant, complex, and often terrifying age of giants. We have witnessed the first, tentative steps of our ancestors, their struggles in the shadows of predators, their ingenious discoveries of tool and fire, and their slow, steadfast rise to become a force of nature in their own right. We have shared the landscape with creatures of mythic proportion and felt the profound shift as their epoch came to a close. Now, as our narrative finds its conclusion, a new day breaks, not on the Pleistocene steppe, but within our own understanding. The true value of this journey lies not merely in the knowledge acquired, but in the new perspective it grants us upon our own world and our place within it. Look outside your window. The tree that grows there, the bird that alights upon its branch, the very soil beneath your feet, all of them are now different. They are no longer just a tree, a bird, or soil. They are the current expressions of an epic saga. That tree is a descendant of the flora that fed the giant ground sloth. That bird carries the legacy of creatures that flew above the heads of Neanderthal hunters. The soil holds the dust of countless generations of life, from the smallest microbe to the most colossal mammoth. The world around us is not a static stage, but a living, breathing museum. Every element a testament to the deep past. The air we breathe was once stirred by the passage of great herds. The rivers we cross once quenched the thirst of saber-toothed cats. This knowledge imbues the ordinary with the extraordinary, transforming the familiar modern world into a landscape rich with memory and meaning. This perspective also reshapes our view of ourselves. The anxieties and challenges of modern life, while real and pressing, are cast in a new light when held against the backdrop of deep time. The daily struggles for connection, for purpose, for security, are modern iterations of the ancient human quest for belonging, for a role in the tribe, and for safety beyond the firelight. The resilience that allowed a small band of humans to survive a bitter Ice Age winter is the same resilience we can call upon to navigate personal trials. The ingenuity that devised a spear thrower is the same ingenuity that can solve complex modern problems. We are not fragile beings in a harsh new world. We are the robust, adaptable heirs to a legacy of survival against impossible odds. The ancient world required not just strength, but patience, observation, and a deep connection to the rhythms of the earth. In reconnecting with that past, we may find forgotten wells of strength and wisdom to draw from in our present. And so, we arrive at the end of our story, but also at a beginning. The tale of how humans faced predators and lived among the giants of the ancient world is not a closed book. It is an open invitation to walk through the world with more observant eyes, to listen for the echoes of the past in the wind and the rivers. It is an invitation to carry the lessons of our ancestors' cooperation, adaptability, and respect for the power of the natural world forward into the future. We are the temporary custodians of a story billions of years in the making. Let us honor that story. Let us live with the courage of the hunter, the wisdom of the storyteller, and the humble heart of a species that remembers its place within the great, turning wheel of life. The dawn is here, quiet and bright, illuminating a world forever changed by the understanding of what came before. The journey is over. The understanding has just begun. Though our chronicle of the past has been told, its presence is not confined to history books or museum displays. The most profound evidence of this ancient journey is not buried in the earth, but is carried within every one of us, written in the silent, intricate code of our DNA. The world of ice and giants, of predators and precarious survival, did not simply shape our culture and tools. It sculpted our very biology. We are, in a tangible sense, living archives of that lost world, and the whispers of our ancestors can be heard in the rhythms of our own bodies and minds. Consider the instinctual startle you feel when a shadow moves unexpectedly at the edge of your vision. This is a modern spark from an ancient fuse, a neural pathway honed over millions of years to detect the stalking posture of a big cat in the tall grass. The deep sense of comfort and safety we feel when gathered with close friends or family around a meal. The modern equivalent of the campfire is rooted in a time when social isolation meant almost certain death. Our innate desire to share stories, to turn our experiences into narratives, is a direct inheritance from those who needed to communicate the location of water, the behavior of a herd, or the danger of a particular cave. These are not just learned behaviors, they are hardwired predispositions, gifts from a world where such traits meant the difference between life and death. Even our physical forms bear the marks of this deep history. The human hand, with its remarkable dexterity and powerful grip, is the product of a long lineage of tree-dwelling, tool-making, and weapon-wielding ancestors. Our ability to sweat profusely and regulate our body temperature so efficiently, a trait that seems mundane today, was a superpower in the context of persistence hunting, allowing us to run under a hot sun while our prey succumbed to heat exhaustion. The structure of our larynx and the complex neural architecture that allows for sophisticated speech were forged in the crucible of social cooperation, where precise communication could coordinate a hunt or warn of a predator with life-saving specificity. We are walking, talking monuments to adaptations that succeeded in a world vastly different from our own. This internal legacy also carries with it a certain paradox. We possess the physiology and many of the instincts of a species built for a life of constant physical exertion, acute environmental awareness, and tight-knit, small group living. Yet, we now inhabit a world of sedentary routines, digital distractions, and vast, often impersonal, social networks. This disconnect between our ancient biology and our modern environment is the source of much contemporary struggle. The stress that arises from social isolation, the anxiety triggered by overwhelming and abstract information, the restlessness of a body built to walk vast distances, now confined, these can be understood as the echoes of an old world colliding with a new one. Understanding this, however, is not a cause for despair, but for empowerment. To recognize the ancient roots of our modern minds and bodies is to gain a deeper compassion for ourselves and our shared human condition. It allows us to reframe our challenges not as personal failings, but as the growing pains of a species navigating a radically new landscape with an ancient operating system. We can consciously choose to honor our deep history by seeking out community, by immersing ourselves in nature, by using our bodies in vigorous ways, by telling stories. In doing so, we are not reverting to a primitive state. we are acknowledging the deep needs of the human animal within, integrating the wisdom of our past to create a more balanced and fulfilling present. The giants may be gone from the outside world, but their world, and the world of our ancestors who faced them, continues to live and breathe within us, a timeless and intimate part of who we are. As we stand at the close of this narrative, having journeyed from the silent dawn of life to the intricate tapestry of the modern human experience, a final, vital realization dawns. The story of our past is not a static monument to be admired from a distance, but a living river, its currents still shaping the shores of our present and future. The legacy of the ancient world is not a relic, it is a dynamic force, a set of principles etched into our very being that continues to play out in the grand and minute dramas of our lives. The epic of survival has transformed, but it has not ended. It has simply changed its stage and its cast, and we are all, always, its participants. Look at the world today through the lens of deep time. The great migrations that defined the Pleistocene as humans followed game and favorable climates across continents now find their echo in the movement of peoples across the globe, driven by the same fundamental needs for safety, resources, and opportunity. The cooperation that was essential for a hunting band to bring down a mammoth is the same force that now drives our greatest scientific collaborations, our international aid efforts, and our global communities. The campfire, that primordial hub of safety, storytelling, and social bonding, has its modern equivalents in our digital networks and community centers, still serving the ancient human need for connection and shared narrative. The challenges we face, climate change, resource scarcity, pandemic disease, are the modern iterations of the ice ages and ecological shifts our ancestors endured. They are tests of the same human qualities, adaptability, ingenuity, and the capacity for collective action. This perspective does not diminish the complexity of our modern world, but rather roots it in a timeless human context. The conflicts between different groups, the struggle for territory and resources, the fear of the unknown, these are not new human inventions. They are ancient patterns, now playing out on a larger, more interconnected scale. But so too are the patterns of compassion, of curiosity, of art, and of the relentless pursuit of understanding. The same mind that sought to comprehend the behavior of a woolly rhinoceros now seeks to unravel the mysteries of quantum physics and the human genome. The same hands that painted bison on cave walls now create digital art and design spacecraft. The story has not ended. Its themes have been amplified and its stakes raised to a planetary level. Therefore, the most important question this journey leaves us with is not what happened, but what will we do with this knowledge? Understanding our deep past is the key to understanding our own nature, with all its contradictions of brutality and beauty, selfishness and sacrifice. It grants us the humility to see that we are part of a much larger story, and the responsibility that comes with being the first chapter writers who are consciously aware of the narrative's arc. We hold the power to continue the story in a way that honors the resilience and cooperation that brought us here. We can choose to be the ancestors that future generations look back upon with gratitude, the ones who heeded the whispers of the past to navigate the challenges of their present. The long story of life on Earth continues, and we are not merely its readers, but its authors. Let us write with wisdom, with courage, and with the profound understanding that we are the temporary, conscious embodiment of a legacy millions of years in the making. The journey is over, but the story is forever unfolding. In the quiet that follows our long journey, a final contemplation arises. We have sought knowledge in the bones of giants and the tools of our ancestors, but the deepest lessons of the ancient world are not found in facts alone. They are found in the silent, enduring wisdom embedded in the very patterns of that lost existence. The ecosystems of the Pleistocene, the behaviors of its creatures, and the strategies of early humans all speak to a profound understanding of balance, an understanding we are now, in our modern age, struggling to rediscover. The giants and the landscapes they inhabited were not just features of a past world. They were teachers, and their lessons, though unspoken, resonate with a clarity that transcends time. Consider the great mammoth herds. Their constant migration was not aimless wandering. It was a vital force of ecological engineering. As they moved, they trampled young trees, maintaining the open grasslands that supported not only themselves, but a vast array of other species. Their dung fertilized the soil, and their trails became pathways for other animals. They were, in essence, stewards of their own environment. their very existence shaping and preserving the ecosystem they depended upon. Their tragic disappearance led to a fundamental shift in those landscapes, a lesson in the interconnectedness of all life. No species, not even the most powerful, exists in a vacuum. The fall of a giant can bring down an entire world with it, a truth we are witnessing in our own time as key species vanish from the earth. Our ancestors, in their turn, understood a different kind of balance, the balance between taking and giving, between courage and caution. A successful hunt was a gift, but it was not taken for granted. Evidence suggests that many ancient cultures held deep reverence for the animals they hunted, believing in a spiritual exchange between the hunter and the hunted. They used every part of the animal, from meat and marrow to hide and bone, in a seamless cycle of respect and utility. There was no waste, because waste was an affront to the sacrifice of the creature and a threat to future survival. This ethos of mindful consumption, born from direct dependence on the natural world, stands in stark contrast to the carelessness of our disposable age. They knew a truth we have forgotten, that to take a life, whether animal or plant, is to enter into a sacred contract, a debt that must be honored through gratitude and responsible use. Perhaps the most poignant lesson is that of resilience through adaptation. The world of the Ice Age was not a stable paradise. It was a roller coaster of climatic extremes. The species that thrived, including our own, were not the strongest in a brute sense, but the most flexible. They were the ones who could learn new ways to find food, who could innovate new tools, and who could cooperate to overcome adversity. They did not try to conquer the changing world. They learned to dance with its rhythms. In our current era of rapid global change, this ancient lesson is more vital than ever. The solution to our challenges lies not in attempting to force the world back to a static, idealized past, but in harnessing our innate human capacity for innovation and cooperation to adapt to the new world we have created. The silent teachers of the ancient world, the mammoth, the saber-toothed cat, the Neanderthal, the early artists offer us no easy answers, but they provide a compass. They point towards a path of interconnectedness, of reverence for life, of mindful consumption, and of resilient adaptation. We carry their legacy not just in our genes, but in the potential for this wisdom within our minds. The story of life millions of years ago is ultimately a profound and enduring lesson in how to live. It is up to us, the children of that ancient world, to finally listen. Our journey through the deep past now finds its final ember, not in the cold ash of extinction, but in the enduring glow of a flame passed from hand to hand, from generation to generation. Across the immense span of millennia, we have followed the path of our ancestors, from their first tentative steps onto the savannah to their mastery of continents, a path illuminated by the fire they carried. This fire was more than just heat and light. It was the first beacon of culture, of community, of defense against the overwhelming dark. And as we stand here now, at the culmination of this long narrative, we recognize that this same fire now passes to us. It is no longer a flame of wood and tinder, but a flame of knowledge, of memory, and of the profound responsibility that comes with understanding our own story. The world we inhabit is the world our ancestors dreamed of in their most hopeful moments around the campfire, a world of abundance, of safety from the teeth of the saber-toothed cat, of knowledge that spans the globe in an instant. We have, in a very real sense, conquered the ancient night. But with this conquest comes a new and profound duty. The fire we carry now has the power to warm the world, or to consume it. Our tools, the descendants of the simple hand axe, can now reshape continents and alter the very climate of the planet. The cooperative spirit that once enabled a mammoth hunt now holds the power to unite humanity in common cause, or fracture it into conflict. The stories we tell, which once served to warn of predators and teach the ways of the hunt, now echo across media, shaping the consciousness of billions. We are the first generation to hold the entire, sweeping epic of life in our hands, and with that knowledge comes the imperative to be not just its heirs, but its stewards. So, what does it mean to carry this fire forward? It means to walk with the humility of the hunter, who knows his life is intertwined with the herd. It means to wield our immense power with the wisdom of the elder, who has seen ages come and go. It means to foster the cooperative spirit of the hunting band on a global scale, recognizing that our shared challenges of climate change, resource management, and planetary health are the new giants that require a unified effort to overcome. It means to tell new stories, not of fear and domination, but but of connection, resilience, and a future where the human chapter is one of guardianship, not just consumption. We are called to become the ancestors that future generations will look back upon with gratitude, the ones who understood the legacy they had been given and chose to protect it, to nurture it, and to pass it on, brighter than they found it. The long story is told. The echoes of the mammoth's tread have faded into the soil. The roar of the great predators is now a whisper in the wind, but the fire remains. It burns in our curiosity, in our compassion, in our relentless drive to understand and to improve. It is the unbroken thread connecting the first human who dared to nurture a spark to the vast, collective light of human civilization. Carry this fire with care, tend to it, let it illuminate not only the path behind you, but the path ahead. For the story of life on Earth is far from over, and the next chapter, the most important one, is yours to write. Our journey through the deep past now finds its final ember, not in the cold ash of extinction, but in the enduring glow of a flame passed from hand to hand. From generation to generation, across the immense span of millennia, we have followed the path of our ancestors from their first tentative steps onto the savannah to their mastery of continents, a path illuminated by the fire they carried. This fire was more than just heat and light. It was the first beacon of culture, of community, of defense against the overwhelming dark. And as we stand here now, at the culmination of this long narrative, we recognize that this same fire now passes to us. It is no longer a flame of wood and tinder, but a flame of knowledge, of memory, and of the profound responsibility that comes with understanding our own story. The world we inhabit is the world our ancestors dreamed of in their most hopeful moments around the campfire, a world of abundance, of safety from the teeth of the saber-toothed cat, of knowledge that spans the globe in an instant. We have, in a very real sense, conquered the ancient night, but with this conquest comes a new and profound duty. The fire we carry now has the power to warm the world, or to consume it. Our tools, the descendants of the simple hand axe, can now reshape continents and alter the very climate of the planet. The cooperative spirit that once enabled a mammoth hunt now holds the power to unite humanity in common cause or fracture it into conflict. The stories we tell, which once served to warn of predators and teach the ways of the hunt, now echo across media, shaping the consciousness of billions. We are the first generation to hold the entire, sweeping epic of life in our hands. And with that knowledge comes the imperative to be not just its heirs, but its stewards. So, what does it mean to carry this fire forward? It means to walk with the humility of the hunter who knows his life is intertwined with the herd. It means to wield our immense power with the wisdom of the elder who has seen ages come and go. It means to foster the cooperative spirit of the hunting band on a global scale, recognizing that our shared challenges of climate change, resource management, and planetary health are the new giants that require a unified effort to overcome. It means to tell new stories, not of fear and domination, but of connection, resilience, and a future where the human chapter is one of guardianship, not just consumption. We are called to become the ancestors that future generations will look back upon with gratitude, the ones who understood the legacy they had been given and chose to protect it, to nurture it, and to pass it on, brighter than they found it. The long story is told. The echoes of the mammoth's tread have faded into the soil. The roar of the great predators is now a whisper in the wind, but the fire remains. It burns in our curiosity, in our compassion, in our relentless drive to understand and to improve. It is the unbroken thread connecting the first human who dared to nurture a spark to the vast collective light of human civilization. Carry this fire with care, tend to it, let it illuminate not only the path behind you, but the path ahead. For the story of life on Earth is far from over, and the next chapter, the most important one, is yours to write. In the quiet aftermath of our epic journey, a final, gentle truth emerges, one that has been woven silently through every chapter. From the first tool to the final philosophical contemplation, it is the truth of our profound and unbreakable kinship with the entire tapestry of life. The story of how humans faced predators and lived among giants is not merely a tale of conflict and conquest. It is, at its heart, a story of relationship. We were never truly separate from the world we navigated. We were participants in a vast, living community, and the bonds we formed, both of fear and of dependence, shaped us as deeply as any tool or fire. This ancient relationship is our most enduring inheritance, a legacy of connection that still calls to us from the depths of our being. Look at the modern dog, resting by your side or walking faithfully on a leash. Its ancestor, the wolf, was once a competitor, a sharp-toothed shadow at the edge of the firelight. The transformation of that relationship from one of wary distance to one of deep, mutual loyalty is one of the most significant events in our shared history. It was not a domestication in the sense of conquest, but a mutual agreement, a pact of companionship that offered the wolf security and food, and offered the human a sharper set of senses, a loyal guardian, and a hunting partner. This bond, forged in the Ice Age, speaks to a capacity for cross-species understanding that is uniquely human. It reveals that our ancestors did not see the world merely as a resource to be exploited, but as a community of beings with whom they could communicate and cooperate. The love we feel for our companion animals today is a direct, emotional echo of that ancient, life-saving partnership. This sense of kinship extended beyond the species we domesticated. The magnificent creatures we hunted were not seen as mere walking ladders. The evidence of ritual treatment of animal bones, the awe-inspiring art deep within caves, the myths and legends that personified animals as powerful spirits, all of this points to a worldview where humans and animals were intimately connected in a web of life and spirit. The hunter may have respected the prey even as he took its life, understanding that his own survival was linked to the well-being of the herd. This reverence for the other, this acknowledgement that we share the world with conscious, powerful beings, is a form of wisdom that modern humanity has often neglected. To rediscover it is to remember that we are not alone on this planet. We are part of a breathing, feeling, magnificent whole. Therefore, the ultimate lesson from the ancient world is not a technique or a strategy, but a state of heart and mind. It is a call to remember our place within the family of things. The giants are gone, but their descendants, the elephants, the rhinos, the great whales, still walk and swim the earth, and they too look out at the world with a deep and ancient awareness. The predators we feared have their counterparts in the big cats and wolves of today, who still play their vital role in the health of ecosystems. Our future, and the future of all life, depends on our ability to rekindle this sense of kinship, to move from a relationship of dominance to one of stewardship, from seeing nature as something out there to recognizing it as the community to which we fundamentally belong. The long story of our past is in the end an invitation to come home, to remember our family, and to honor the unspoken bond that connects us to every living creature, from the smallest insect to the most distant star. The story is told. The connection is eternal. The final embers of our narrative now glow with a soft, steady light, illuminating not the past, but the path ahead. We have journeyed together to the very roots of our being, unearthed the struggles and triumphs of our ancestors, and felt the immense weight and wonder of the deep time that forged us. We have listened to the whispers of the giants and understood the profound legacy they left imprinted on our spirit. This journey was never merely about uncovering what was, it was always about understanding what is, and about imagining what could be. The horizon ahead is vast and unknown, but we do not approach it empty-handed. We carry with us the entire human story, a compass forged in ice and fire, to guide our steps into the future. We stand now as the first generations to hold this complete map of our origins. We know the cost of fragility, written in the bones of extinct species. We know the power of resilience, etched into our own DNA. We understand the vital importance of cooperation, a lesson learned from hunting bands and the building of the first communities. And we feel the creative spark that first flickered in cave paintings and now illuminates our digital age. This knowledge is our greatest tool, more powerful than any spear or atlatl. It grants us the self-awareness to see our own potential, both for incredible creation and for profound destruction. The challenges that now loom on our horizon, the changing climate, the loss of biodiversity, the societal divides are, the new redditors, the new ice ages. They are the tests that will demand the full measure of the human qualities honed over millions of years: adaptability, ingenuity, and, most of all, a united sense of purpose. The story of our past does not dictate our future, but it informs it. It shows us the paths that led to flourishing and the cliffs that led to collapse. It teaches us that we are at our best, not when we seek to dominate nature, but when we seek to understand our role within it. The future chapter of humanity will be defined by the choices we make today. Will we be the ancestors who, blessed with the full knowledge of our past, chose short-term gain over long-term survival? Or will we be the ones who heeded the ancient lessons, who used our collective genius to steward the planet, to foster global cooperation, and to ensure that the human flame continues to burn brightly, not as a wildfire that consumes, but as a hearth that warms and sustains? The long story from the ancient world is now complete. The campfire around which it was told is dying down, its purpose served. A new day is dawning, and its light falls upon you. You are the inheritor of all that has been. You carry the hunter's courage, the artist's vision, the storyteller's voice, and the elder's wisdom. The next chapter in the great book of life is blank, waiting for its first words. Let them be words of compassion, of wisdom, of bold innovation, and of a renewed, sacred bond with this beautiful, fragile world we call home. The journey is over. The responsibility is yours. Go and write a magnificent story. And so, we arrive here, at the end of our long telling. We have sat together, you and I, across the gulf of millennia, and shared a story that is the birthright of every human being. We have felt the chill of the ice ages and the heat of the primordial fire. We have heard the thunder of mammoth herds and the silent, determined footsteps of our ancestors. We have witnessed the rise of a mind capable of turning stone into art and fear into courage. This story, this immense journey, now settles within you. It is no longer just a history. It is a part of you, a memory woven into your spirit. For stories are the true fire we learn to carry. They are the light that outlasts any individual life, the warmth that connects generation to generation. The first story, told in the flickering light of a cave, was a map, a warning, a prayer, a celebration. It was the moment we transcended mere survival and began to imbue our world with meaning. That same impulse drives us now. We are all storytellers, adding our verse to the eternal human epic. The tools have changed from oral tales to written words to digital streams, but the fire is the same. We tell stories to understand our past, to navigate our present, and to imagine our future. This particular story, the story of our deepest past, is now entrusted to you. Carry it forward. Share its wonders and its warnings. Let it remind you of the resilience etched into your bones, the cooperation encoded in your heart, and the boundless curiosity that sparks in your mind. You are the current keeper of the flame, a living link in a chain that stretches back to the dawn of consciousness. The campfire is embers now. The tale is told. But look, the dawn is breaking. A new day awaits, filled with its own stories to be lived and told. Go now, into the light, and live them well. The end.